Welcome to Championship Culture. Got a fantastic guest tonight. Nate Connor is the head football coach at DH Conley in Greenville, North Carolina. He's just finished up his 7th year as the head football coach. He's a 14-year veteran and been 12 years at DH Conley, so he's got DH Conley running his blood. I actually saw Nate speak just a couple weeks ago, really, at the Eastern North Carolina Football Coach Association clinic, and man, he packed the room and did a great job. Top quarterbacks, but I know from just talking to other people that he does an excellent job building culture and building young men. And so I invited him on. He was nice enough to say yes and come on and talk to us. So Nate, thanks for being here, man. I'm excited about talking with you.
Coach, it's an honor. I really appreciate you having me on. I think this is an incredible thing you do for football coaches. It's one of the things we're blessed now as football coaches to have all these resources and to have a good voice to be able to go and hear it from. It's a pleasure. So it's an honor to be on here.
I appreciate you doing it, man. And let's jump into it. Well, just saying that, I remember when there was none of this back in the day. You know, you had to go visit someone and pry it out of them to get this kind of information, and now it's out there all the time. But that said, you're a dang good one to get it from. So I appreciate you doing this. So question number one, can you give a 1-minute elevator introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. So, Coach, I'm not from North Carolina originally. I'm originally from Florida. I grew up in Florida, and a lot of my love of the sport of football comes from the state of Florida. Growing up in that state, and I was a big Florida Gator fan, grew up in that household. My parents loved the Florida Gators and grew up in the great years of it with Steve Spurrier, the Fun and Gun, Danny Werfel. Some of my greatest memories are that. And so that's where a lot of my passion for offensive football and the sport of football really started. I played high school football down there just outside of Jacksonville, Ridgeview High School. And then I went on to play at Jacksonville University. And I was a wide receiver at Jacksonville University. Very, very proud of the career I was able to, have, and wouldn't change it for anything. The coaches I got to play for, the players I got to play with. And I feel it's a big part of who I am as a football coach still today, was my experiences I had in the state of Florida. And I'm proud to be able to bring that to the state of North Carolina a little bit. Right after school, I coached 1 year high school football down in Florida with a buddy, and that's really how I got into coaching. I wasn't sure. I always knew I wanted to do something with the sport of football. Wasn't sure how I was going to go about doing it, and I coached a year high school football down there right in Florida, and then moved up actually here to North Carolina. I went to Chowan University, coached a season as a tight ends coach on staff there one season, and my family had moved up to Greenville, and that's part of the reason I wanted to come up here and give this a shot. And after a year at Chowan University, I came to Greenville where they were. And a new head football coach had just been hired at DH Conley. They hadn't had a bunch of success. I didn't really know a lot about football in the area. And I was just passionate about wanting to get involved. Met the new head football coach, Brian Pascal, when he got hired. And the rest is kind of history there. I learned so much from Coach Pascal, working under him for 5 years as an had the pleasure of coaching a lot of great young men. It's a great community. We had the privilege of really turning around a program and making it something special. And now I've just completed my 7th season as the head football coach at DH Conley. So it's been a blessing. And, I've never been somewhere as long as I have been here in Greenville. Growing up in Florida, I kind of lived in a couple different places. And now I've been here at Conley for 12 years, and it feels great.
A couple things. Number one, Jacksonville, that's the home of the Dolphins, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So I grew up in that, spent my teens and 20s in that area. So I know about that. And I think, especially up here, a lot of people don't know the rich football tradition that Florida has. I grew up in Miami, and there were no other professional teams. It was football. That was it, back in that time. So, that's where I learned my love, the Dolphins and the Hurricanes. That's where I learned my love for football, and was actually the first football game I ever saw live was Miami Hurricanes versus Temple, and it was back before Snellenberger. So it was Miami's homecoming, and they got murdered by Temple. And then luckily Snellenberger came in a couple of years later and changed it for them. So interesting, small world. All right. So question number 2, how do you define culture in your program?
Coach, culture is such an interesting thing. It's something we talk about all the time, I think, especially with the sport of football and high school football, wherever you hear about it, you always hear about culture. But I feel it's one of those things. I've thought this is something I thought about in the past couple of years, and really this off season as I went in to go into it. I thought about what is a true definition of culture. We can see it in the way we work. We're proud of our discipline and all that thing, but how do we develop it? And what I had come up with before you even kind of came to me about this, and it was, it's a blessing to get to talk about it because it made me really think about these things even more. But culture in a definition to me and to our program is our program's shared vision, values, goals, and standards. In a nutshell, it's the way we go about everything we do. But I think that's what the culture has to be in our program. It's not about wins and losses. I think wins and losses are a byproduct of our culture, but how we do everything, how we lift weights, how we practice, how we develop these guys, it's all defined in our culture. And I think we have to lay out that vision for these guys. We're dealing with 14-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds. And I think it's very important to have that process.
That's awesome. That's very similar to the way I envision culture, shaping, drive the driving force behind your program. So question number 3, this is the big one now. This is the one we want to steal all your good ideas. What are the 3 best things you do to build culture in your program?
All right. So if you were to ask our players what culture meant in our program, I think we have a phrase that we use that I've developed with our guys, and it's called strive, STRIVE. And what strive stands for, and the basis of, is strive for greatness. And that's really where we teach and we develop our core values. So what we do is we teach that out of that word, and what that means, that word kind of symbolizes what we represent. We're always striving for greatness. Now, we feel there's a difference between good and average and great. There's a gap whenever you talk about something. If you have, that's a good football team, or that's a great football team. That's a good football player. That's a great football player. That's a good workout. That's a great workout. There's differences in all those, and we always want to be on that upper echelon, that higher level. So we're always striving for greatness. So we have terms and core values that come out of that term strive. But really what it comes down to is we're constantly trying to be the best we can be. So we might not ever technically reach greatness, but we're constantly trying to get to greatness. And these core values, and I'm going to tell you what they are, that we represent, are kind of what we go out. So way we go about doing this, and there's 6 core values that I've set out that I think embody what we want in a football player, that not only apply to us playing on the football field, but how we kind of carry ourselves in everything. They are toughness, mental and physical toughness, I think, are extremely important. I don't think you can be physically tough without being mentally tough first. I think you have to have that mental willpower before you can be physically tough. And I think there's so many things when it comes to toughness in the sport of football, not just bashing your head up against the wall and hitting somebody, but so many things. We have to be mentally and physically tough. I think that's the beautiful thing of high school football, is there's not a lot of things left for teenagers to hang on to have to do something, be mentally and physically tough. And I think football provides that. The toughness is one of our main core values. Integrity, doing things the right way. How we do anything, it comes down to what we value, how we treat people, how we go about our exercises, how we go about our practices, the way we have sportsmanship. There's so many things that lie in with integrity, but we want to have great integrity. We want to have trust. Our next one is trust. We want to believe in our program. We want to believe in the process. You always hear trust the process. We want to believe in one another. We want to believe in ourselves. We want to trust our coaches as players. We want to trust our players as coaches. So trust is very important. Our next thing is attitude. I think our attitude sets everything when we come to doing things on a daily basis. The right mindset. We face all kinds of adversity in Eastern North Carolina. We face, this might have been the most blessing of a year weather-wise we've actually had. But we're coming out of COVID season. We're coming out of, we're always dealing with different weather challenges, so many different things on a daily basis. And our attitude, we bring a positive attitude. The way we have an outlook on things is so important. Love. We must have love of the sport of football. football's a hard thing, and it's a year-round commitment in a program. Not necessarily we're throwing the football year-round and running drills and everything else, but to be a successful football player and develop your body and be a team, we have to have some type of year-round culture. And I think we have to love the sport to want to be a part of that, and we have to love our teammates. And if we're really passionate about something, we're gonna give our best in it. So we have to have love, and ultimately, it finally comes down to commitment to the process, commitment to our teammates, commitment to core values, commitment to the complete program. So those are the 6 core values we kind of establish and we teach to our players, and that kind of, we feel, gets us to those things, that vision, those standards. It allows us to achieve our goals, and everything we do. That's the main thing we want to do, is establish that. So that's the first thing we do. Then, I think we have to constantly, the next thing we have to do, and once we lay out those expectations and kind of teach our guys what these things mean, and we're developing, I think we have to be cautious as coaches, is it's easy to look at the great player. It's easy to, that's the finished product. It's easy to look at that senior who's been through 4 years of that program, but we're dealing with teenagers here. And we have to consciously say, we're trying to get them to, when they leave our program, be better for being a part of our program, and understand that this is a 4-year process of, hopefully, in our core values, that they're coming out of this thing ready for, whether it's college football, whether it's for the workforce, whether if it's college, it's the military, that they take something out of our program, but we're making them better men going through these things. So we got to constantly lay out our communication, and expectations, calendars, when we expect them to be here, what we expect them to be doing. I think we have to be upfront, honest, and constantly communicating those things with them. That's so important with teenagers. They got a lot of things they do, and they're involved in a lot of different things, whether it's work, other school activities. And if we want them to be a part of and fully abide that, we got to respect that, and we got to communicate what we expect well, and just hold them accountable to it. And I think the most important thing with those values I talked about, it has to come from myself and our assistant coaches. We have to model those things every single day. Maybe not one particular thing, and one thing comes on another day, but we have to be the examples. It's my job as the head football coach at DH Conley to set the tone for the program every single day. I got to bring the energy. We ask these guys to do a lot of things, and they balance their schedules, like I said, and we have to bring the energy and hold them to matching it. And when it comes down to, we talk about standards and what we expect and all that stuff, and it's our job, my job, I feel, as the head coach, to set that standard, to set that example for them every single day. So that's really, we go about teaching them. We'll teach them through PowerPoint and everything, and we have certain ways we teach them those things. I think technology and COVID and all that stuff has helped with that, but we have to teach those values. And the last thing I'll say with that too, I kind of had written down and wanted to think about that was, we demand excellence out of our players, and we want them to become their best, but I think our players should be able to demand excellence out of us too, for us to give them our best. And I think there's a level of respect that you get out of your players when they want, I think all players and all kids, whatever background they come from, if they're passionate about being successful, they want structure, they want discipline, they want all those things. They might not realize it and realize the right ways to go about doing it, but I think it's our job to teach them that. And I think they should expect us to put them in the best success situations to be successful, to teach them the best possible ways we can. And we admit we're not perfect. We don't know everything, but we want to show them and be humble enough to say when we mess up, and also, hey, we're working on correcting that. And I think that all falls into our core values. And the last thing I'll kind of say about that, and where I've grown as a coach thinking about this and maturing myself, is, I think we want to win. We all want to win football games. We all want our program to be seen in a positive light, in that way. And there's nothing like winning a football game and having a winning championship season. But I think our ultimate goal is really to develop that culture and develop that program that our players gain something and they leave with for the rest of their lives. I don't forget my high school football coach, my coaches at made an impact on me, and those things I think you take with them the rest of your life. And I think it's important that we take a lot of pride in that as coaches, and we work to develop that. And I think winning football games is a byproduct of that, and a lot of times that happens.
That's awesome, man. I mirror a lot of your thought process there, and you know, I was thinking when you were talking about the process of 4 years in the culture, you know, I heard the term 4 for 40. Are you familiar with that one? You know, that we get them for 4 years, but what we put inside of them is going to carry them the next 40.
For
And
the next 40 years. Absolutely. And I don't, and that's where, you don't take it lightly. And when you have to remove a kid from your program, that's not something that you want to do. And that's something that we are very calculated with. We go about, because I think when you take a kid out of your program, you still might be around them in the school day, but it's not the same thing. So we don't want to just kick a kid off. I'm not saying that we'll let a kid do whatever and it was within our program, but these guys aren't perfect. It's our job, I feel, to develop them. Some of these guys come from backgrounds where they don't know discipline and the right and wrong way to do things. And we have to be patient and be willing to take those guys. And hopefully by the time they walk across that stage, their senior year of high school, something is left with them for the next 40 years.
awesome, man, awesome. All right, so here you go. You get to be the old guy now. You ready? 14 years of experience. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
I think there's so many things, Coach. I think I'm learning. I'm a better coach now in the off season than I think I was in the season. I think we have to be lifelong learners and constant learners. And I think there's probably a book on the things I thought I knew and didn't know. And, especially when you're playing and you go into coaching and you don't realize when you're a wide receiver, you don't necessarily really care what the three technique is and who's fitting the gaps and what run fits are and everything else. You're not thinking about those kind of things. And you have to learn that. And my process going through has, I've been around some people that have taught me a lot of those great things. And a lot, I've been fortunate to put myself around a lot of coaches in college that have been gracious to me and things like this, where I've learned from guys that have taught me those things. I think the biggest thing is I think I always had this thought that you had to have so many things to be able to. You had to have so many drills. You had to be able to have an answer for everything, every situation. And what I've constantly learned is you don't have to have something new every week. It's better to master the things you do when you hang your hat on and continue to build. I think we make the mistake of outthinking ourselves sometimes. And when we're playing an opponent, that opponent's going through the same challenges we are. That opponent has 4 days to prepare for it. That opponent has just played 3 games prior. They're dealing with injuries and everything else. And I think sometimes I can catch myself at least trying to have an answer for if they roll to this coverage, we want to be in this cut and we want to have this. And over time, we've been able to develop plays that will fit everything. That might not be a home run all the time. And every single, we got to call this play to this coverage. You try to develop that core thing that applies, that can be successful to all things that's sound. And I think we're constantly trimming the fat on that. So I think I've gradually learned to focus on things we do well through self-evaluation, try to build off of those and eliminate some of the other distractions. I think really coaching football, and I heard this up in Greensboro from a great football coach, is we don't want the greatest coaches, and you hear all these college coaches when they speak at clinics, they're like, Coach, we're not that complicated. We're not blessed with a ton of just brilliant minds that can handle all these different things. I think that's what TV portrays sometimes. But I think they're great at being extremely complex in a simple manner. And I think that's always our goal, is to be simply complex. That's kind of how I can define it. How complex can we be to the outside eye, but be able to teach simply to our boys that they can always be ready for whatever situation.
Well, as an air raid guy, you're speaking my love language right there about being simple, but trying to appear complex. So I agree 100% with your thoughts there.
And I think, Coach, and I'm not a quote unquote air raid guy. I wouldn't say I'm not either, though. I love everything the air raid's a part of. I love, from Coach Mummy and Coach Leach and look at all those things from the outside world but I think that's what the air raid hangs their hat on. Hey, we're going to do these things really well. Now we're going to have a wrinkle that we throw in and create confusion and dressing, but when it comes down to it, we're going to run these plays. We're going to be really good at them.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. Even at that level, Leach is still, he's throwing 95, 15 times a game still, same exact way he's been running it for years and years and years. So I'm with you. All right. So contact information. Are you on Twitter? Are you on anything, any social media that they can get up with you on?
Coach, I'm embarrassed to say that a little bit. I'm not the best. That's one of my off-season goals, is to kind of become a little better. Not to say I think there's anything wrong with Twitter or anything like that. I get in there, I kind of get on and click on something and go down the rabbit hole. I think there's a ton of great information on there. I just have never kind of made a Twitter page. We communicate with our guys through something else, but I think it's something I need to do. It's something I want to do for our football team and do a better job of. I think that's where I've evaluated I need to be better at. So no Twitter. I think the best way to communicate with me would just be through my email address, which is Connor, CONNERN. Okay, so it's Connor N at pitt.k12.nc.us.
Now I'll post that on the show notes so they'll be able to get to you that way. There's a lot of guys. You're not the only one. A lot of guys are smart because they don't want social media in their ear during the season. So I think that's why a lot of coaches avoid it.
I think there's great benefit to it though too. I think these things like this have come out of it, and you can go down in rabbit holes and click on one thing and it leads to the other. I need to do a better job of it. I do enjoy it. I just don't necessarily get on it and have a page. And then through that, Coach, I'll call and talk to people or whatever. That'd be the easy way, just to communication and do that.
Well, I'll post your email and they can get to you that way. So that brings us to, do you have anything to promote, or you have the last word? Anything you want to talk about and share to finish this thing up?
Nothing special to promote, Coach. I think we need to continue to I think what you're doing here is fantastic. I think, I want to promote this channel. I want to promote. It's nice as a football coach. I think there's a lot of information out there, but it's nice to be able to have something, a trusting voice you can go to, where coaches can come and, hey, this guy has experience, this guy does this. And so I think this kind of avenue is fantastic. And so I'm a big advocate for that. And there's other YouTube channels and pages that are fantastic for that as well. So that, and I think, something we need them. I want to promote coaching the sport of football. And I want to say that, so there might be a coach out there listening to this that might be, man, I don't have all the answers. I love the sport of football. And I have a knowledge of it a little bit, a general fan knowledge. Man, if you're passionate about coaching, if you're passionate about the sport of football, you want to get involved in young people's lives and help them, I encourage you to start coaching. Start coaching football. We need more coaches. Look, if you're interested in coaching in Greenville, North Carolina, and coaching at DH Conley High School, send me an email. We need great people to surround our players with. And, I think you can teach X's and O's. I think just like me, look, this stuff's a lot learned around great people, and we want to develop that. But if you have a willingness to be around young people, you have a passion for the sport of football, get into coaching. And don't be afraid that you don't know everything, because a young person like myself who thought they might have known everything didn't know everything. And I still don't know everything. I have a lot more to continue to learn. And that's what's fun to me about this sport.
Amen, brother. We had our banquet Monday, and one of the uncles who's done our end zone copy came up and said he watches the channel and he's thinking, I said, come on, man, we need you. Because what your typical people don't realize, and what you're alluding to is, man, we need great people. The X's and O's are the easy part. It's getting great people that are committed, that want to make a difference with kids. That if you got that heart, we can teach you everything else. Heck, how many times have you got an old guy and they want to tell you how they did it, back in 1973, I said, I need a guy that can just learn what we want to do, so I'm with you 100% on that. We need more coaches, and I'm glad you said that, because there's probably a lot of guys that need to hear that. Buddy, you did fantastic, and I sure do appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks a lot, Coach. It's a blessing to be on here.
Thank you, buddy.